Community isn't content, it's conversation. And at the heartbeat of every good conversation is curiosity. Welcome to Talk About Your Community. I'm Todd Nilson, and today we're exploring how curiosity fuels stronger, more connected digital spaces. My guest is Dr. Debra Clary, TEDx speaker, strategist, and author of The Curiosity Curve, coming in 2025. After decades of leading brands like Coca-Cola, Frito-Lay, Jack Daniels, and Humana, she's now focused on one big idea. Curiosity can transform the way communities grow and thrive. We'll talk about how curiosity helps people bridge divides, spark collaboration, and move into real collective action. If you're building a community that needs more energy, more engagement, and more genuine connection, this is the conversation for you. Kalisa, let's roll the opening. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you may happen to be. You've tuned into Talk About Your Community, the show about building better communities online and having fun while doing it. I'm glad you're here today. If this is your first time on the show, we bring in a variety of guests from different kinds of perspectives and ideologies and understandings of what it means to create places where belonging is welcomed. And today's no exception. We're going to have a wonderful conversation today about the deep topic of sparking curiosity and building better relationships as a result of it. So I hope that you've come armed with questions for my guest, Dr. Debra Clary, today, who we'll be bringing on in just a second. In the meantime, if you haven't already, please take the opportunity to chime in and introduce yourself. If you're coming in from LinkedIn, I can usually see who's posting, but I will try to keep an eye on the feed for that. And if you're on YouTube, I'd love to hear from you too. We try to respond to each and every person who comes onto the show. Just by way of a little bit of bookkeeping before we jump into the meat of the conversation, I would ask that you take an opportunity to subscribe to the YouTube channel for Clocktower Advisors and drop a comment, follow us, share it with anyone that's interested, as well as follow the Clocktower Advisors company page, where you will get notifications about any of our upcoming shows. And speaking of which, our next show is coming up on Friday, September the 19th at 10 a.m. U.S. Central Time. And our guests are going to be Mimp Jamton and Yun Yen Tsai, who are going to be talking about the topic of gamification in action. For those of you who followed along with the show before, we've had a number of guests in the past, really great people like Amy Jo Kim and David Fergan and others who have talked about using gamification as a viable set of engagement tactics to get people to deepen their engagement and commitment to online community participation. But that being said, I want to celebrate the main event here. My guest today is Dr. Debra Clary. Deb, wonderful to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, so you're coming to us from Prospect, Kentucky, a place. I lived in Kentucky for a number of years, but I understand you're a Midwestern native and have found your way down to the South, a little bit more moderate climate these days.
Yes, absolutely. I was born and raised in the Detroit area, and then I moved to Princeton, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and now near Louisville, Kentucky.
Wonderful, wonderful. I can't wait to get into our conversation today. You've got a book coming out in October called the Curiosity Curve, and I want to understand what that curve is in the course of our conversation today, and how you arrived at that. We'll be sure to put a link to that up in the chat for anybody that wants to pre-order the book. But briefly, what inspired you to write the book?
Yeah, so it's just a way of background. I spent 3 decades in corporate America, from Frito-Lay, Coca-Cola, Jack Daniels, and then I moved into healthcare. And I spent the last 15 years of my career in healthcare. And I was sitting next to my CEO, And this company, Humana, it's a $100 billion company, over 100,000 employees. So, Fortune 40 company. And in this meeting, he turned to me and he said, "Do you think curiosity can be learned, or is it innate?" And I'm like, "I don't know." But obviously I was curious. And so I was just going on holiday. And so that my whole vacation was digging into research and literature and articles on this topic. Could it be learned, or is it innate? And so I came back a week later. I was sitting next to the CEO again, and I said, "Oh, by the way, curiosity can be learned." And that began this really profound shift in how I looked at leadership, how I looked at culture. And I also realized that for me, there wasn't enough research on specifically the drivers of curiosity and how it could change organizations. And so I then commissioned some primary research on that topic.
Very interesting. And I love the way that you entered into that with the conversation with the CEO. You started out though as a route delivery driver.
I, I
That was
did, yeah,
the
with,
world.
you know, right out of business school, tons of hope, lots of aspiration in terms of what my career trajectory would look like. And I went to an interview with Frito-Lay thinking I was interviewing for a manager role. So I went in a suit and a briefcase, and I was like armed to, to take on the world. And I returned with a uniform and a clipboard. And they said, everyone starts driving a truck. And I literally, out of business school, was a teamster, driving a route truck in the city of Detroit. But the thing about it is, it's where it became my classroom, meaning that I was learning things that my colleagues at Procter and Gamble and Coca-Cola, they weren't learning what I was learning. I was learning how to manage a P&L. I was learning how to, navigate relationships with backdoor receivers and the manager. And it just really set the pace for the rest of my career.
Amazing, amazing. And it's like the equivalent of the old cliche of having to start in the mailroom. So you kind of learn things from the ground up in the organization. There's some wisdom in that, I guess.
It for me, it was like spectacular. When I went home and told my parents I was going to be a teamster, they just said, "Well, all right, that wasn't what we were expecting you to come back and say." But they also said, "This is going to be great learning grounds for you." And I remember my mother saying, "How hard could it be?" And man, I learned how hard it could be. I mean, Michigan winters,
Oh,
heavy boxes. Yeah, it was physically demanding.
I could only imagine. Yeah, absolutely, very difficult work. So, as you've commissioned some of the research on building curiosity, as you've kind of delved into this as a topic, as for your new book that's coming out, is there a story or a finding you had that sort of demonstrated or captured like how curiosity can maybe instantly change the mood of the room, the connection, the online space? I'm curious if there was sort of like an aha moment for you.
Yeah, a couple of things. I worked with a group of researchers, and I started off with I was very narrow in my research and in my research question. And Todd, you know this from your background. And the research question I had was, what is the relatedness between leadership, performance, and curiosity? And the researchers are like, "No, we need to go deeper." And I know that's the only question I want to know. Is there a relatedness to this? Meaning leaders that have high levels of curiosity, what impact do they actually have on performance? And of course,
Yeah.
leaders manage teams, and then teams are made up of individuals. And the answer came back that there's a direct correlation between a leader's level of curiosity and the level of curiosity of their team, and which then translates into performance. And that's when I said, I can't do anything else with my life but share this gospel that, wow, if we can really change organizations by curiosity, and it can be learned and it can be measured, why wouldn't we do that?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely want to get into the measurement of curiosity. That sounds
Okay.
like an amazing topic. But I wanted to ask you, so particularly with my professional space, building online communities and helping to make sure that they're uh, curious spaces, if you will. Um, I'll, I think there's a little bit of a complex relationship between the community manager and the members of that community. And as a community manager, you are a leader of sorts, but you're kind of like a cheerleader or an evangelist within that space. Would you say that's easier or harder or about the same, as that correlation you found between sort of high curiosity in organizational leaders and the commensurate level of curiosity of the teams? Does that translate well?
Yes, in the sense that curiosity is contagious. So if you're a curious leader, your team has a tendency to have high levels of curiosity. But the same is true with your friends. If you are you associate with people with a high level of curiosity, you like to go out to dinner with people or play tennis with people that are curious, it actually all boats rise. We fuel and spark each other's curiosity, and that's why I say curiosity is contagious and curiosity can be learned.
Wonderful, wonderful. So for those of you just joining in, I know we have some people that sometimes pop in a moment late. Our guest today is Dr. Debra Clary, author of The Curiosity Curve, coming October 7th, 2025. And it's wonderful to see some friends on the stream who I haven't seen in a little while. Piper Wilson, of course, showing up as KG. Hello, welcome. Great to see you, as always, my friend. Patty Pritchard Thompson. Patty, it's been forever. Great to see you. I'm glad you're able to join us today. Rona, hello, a partner through the Community Consultants Collective at TradeWing. And a new face, someone I haven't seen, Rob McGraw, on the show before, but of course, Rob is a colleague and a friend. Love his comment here. Curiosity is indicative of openness. Inclusion and engagement, less command and control. Rob is a colleague of mine. We met through some online networking, and he's a regular collaborator with some of the stuff that I do as well. Welcome to all. You please keep the comments and questions coming. Love this. So, Deb, what's something that leaders often get wrong about building healthy teams, and how can curiosity be maybe a corrective or preventative around that?
Yes, I think leaders think that they have to have all the answers. I mean, after all, they're the leaders, and they're probably the reason they've been promoted into leadership is probably they were very competent. They did great work. Now, as the leader, they believe that their job is just to have all the answers. And to me, the best leaders have the best questions, meaning that they are advancing people's thinking by asking questions. The other thing that we get wrong is that we think leadership is something that is played is a short game. Leadership is a long game, in the sense that our role as leaders is to develop other leaders. You don't develop leaders or people if you're simply telling them what to do.
That's amazing. It reminds me a little bit of one of our previous guests who I see is on the stream today, Brian Fretwell. Hi, Brian. Great to see you, man. One of the hallmarks of one of his exercises is about having small groups come together and share what went well this week. And his rule around that is you can't make any kind of judgments. You can't give advice. You can't be directive with it. All you can do is ask a curious question, which I think that tracks beautifully with what you're describing and that approach, and really kind of taking the long game approach for that. Like it's something that you convene on a weekly basis and try to do with your team to build that sense of connectedness.
Yes.
So Deb, not only are you an accomplished business leader and an author, writing this book, but I understand you're also a performer as well. And I'm curious about how your experience as a performer has maybe informed your experience of creating curiosity in the workplace.
Yeah, so let me tell you a little bit of a backstory about how I did this one woman show off Broadway. It's during COVID. I was I was a part of a mastermind group, other women executives around the country, and we would talk once a month. You know, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How's your family? What's going on at work? What are some of your aspirations as we come out of this situation? And this, went on during COVID. And in 2022, they said, we're all coming to Louisville because we have something to celebrate. And I like a good celebration. So they're here, we're toasting champagne. And these women say, well, we're actually celebrating Dad. And I'm like, wait, I didn't do anything. And they go, oh, we forgot to tell you. We pitched your idea for the one woman show, and you're booked off Broadway starting September of 23.
What? That's amazing.
And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And they go, no, you are ready. You say it's a dream of yours. So start writing. And so that was the first time I had ever wrote a show like that, performed a show. And when I got into it, I quickly realized I didn't know what I was doing. And so it was the power of bringing people that had that expertise in to help me adapt it to stage, to direct it, and to really teach me what it meant to be a performer. And so that's how that all came about. And the show was called A Curious Woman. And it was about how curiosity has served me in being a woman in the 80s and 90s in big corporations. And it was a comedy. So it was a lot of fun, but it was a huge stretch to go from the corporate world to the stage.
Yeah. So you maybe translated a few of the situations or anecdotes from your work experience career into the show.
It was the whole thing was about my life, being a route driver and the funny things that happened being a route driver, and just throughout my entire career. And it wasn't pejorative. I didn't put anybody down. I didn't put any systems down. This was my experience. And this is how I got out of situations or moved through situations, by being curious.
I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have an example you could share around that?
So there was I was working for the Coca-Cola company in Atlanta, and I was an account manager. And I just was fortunate that my account was the fastest growing in the world. I just got lucky to be on this rocket ship, so to speak. And so I got invited to present to the president of the Coca-Cola company, along with other colleagues and other executives. So now I find myself in this boardroom at the Coca-Cola company, and I'm the last to go. Like, because I'm behind McDonald's, Burger King, Arby's, and then there's my account, which is the fastest growing, but still the smallest going. And I describe this whole scene. I act out this scene of what it meant to be like people were highly competitive. Coca-Cola is successful because their salespeople are very competitive. So the first person gets up and says, I'm going to present my plan for McDonald's. And they take a couple hours. Then the next person gets up and says, I'm going to share my strategic plan for Burger King. Then the next guy, I'm going to share my high level strategic. You can see where this is going. Everybody had to add a word to this thing. And so I just describe how it got bigger and bigger. And now I'm last to go. And I'm thinking, what in the heck could I possibly say? Now, we've been there 8 hours. These executives are tired.
Yeah.
And so I just walked slowly to the front of the room. And this is back in the day where you had a transparency and overhead projector. Now I'm carrying a stack of, right? And I look at Jack Stahl, and he's tired. And I just said to him, look, Jack, I can tell everybody is really exhausted. Let me just tell you what I'm going to do. We're going to grow business by 35%. We're going to do it this way, this, and that way. Is there anything else I could answer for you? And he was so relieved that I didn't go through these transparencies. So the sense of being able to read the room and then having the courage to say, here's what they really need. They just need the bottom line. And so I act out this whole show about the different levels of strategic planning.
That's amazing. That sounds like fun. Oh my gosh. Was the show ever recorded? Did you?
Yeah, we recorded most of them.
Oh my goodness, I'd love to watch it sometime. That'd be great.
You can do that.
So we're getting a lot of comments from the chat here. I want to be able to play some of those, so it's not just my questions coming up here. I wanted to just kind of go back through here. Just a comment here from friend Matthias Gleaming, a colleague of mine from the Community Consultants Collective. A true community mindset is, by definition, curious, right? You need to be open, flexible, and curious to new needs and wants of your community. Absolutely. Piper was asking, will the curve be available on Kindle at some point?
It will. It'll be on October the 7th as well. You can get it Kindle, audio, and then hardback.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And then I noticed here was a question from Brian, relevant to your work. Do you have a go-to question or topic theme that you're consistently curious about?
Health. Yeah, I spend a couple hours every morning when I'm walking, I'm listening to podcasts about health and well-being.
Interesting. So that for you personally, that's something to come back. I think a lot of people as well, for sure.
Yeah.
And then there was a question here from Rona. Do you find curiosity as something innate, or can it be learned?
So the answer is yes and yes. So what we found in our research is that as children, they ask 298 questions a day. Now that might be they're pointing, but if you've been around toddlers, why is the sky blue? On and on and on, right? So we kind of naturally, everything is new in the world, so we're asking questions and trying to make sense of that. But over time, we become incurious. And there's a lot of reasons we become incurious. I mean, one, in schools, children are taught to be seen and not heard. You have to sit in your seat. You have to raise your hand. Now, my daughter's a teacher, and I would not want mayhem in the classroom. So I understand why there are rules. But over time, we learn to be incurious. And then what happens is we go to college or graduate school, we become accountants or attorneys or medical doctors, and we are experts in our field. And what happens is we're rewarded for that expertise. So that's what we give to others. And then secondly, we have time constraints, and we don't necessarily have time to go out and be curious about something that's related or not related to what it is that we're working on. And then of course we spend a whole bunch of time in meetings. So there's not a whole lot of time to be exploring on certain things. So the answer is yes, it is innate. And the second thing is, yes, it can be learned. And it's learned by one, and this is what I talk about in the book, is there is a framework in terms of how to be more curious. And we can also measure it. We have validated an assessment tool and if you can go to my website, you can take it for free. You can see your current level of curiosity, and curiosity is on a continuum. And you can continuously improve in these 4 factors of curiosity.
What are the 4 factors of curiosity?
Are you curious? Are you curious about what they are? Yeah. So the instrument is made up of 4 factors: exploration, inspirational creativity, openness to new ideas, and focused engagement. So you're working with someone that is in exploration is if they're saying things like, hey, what have we not thought about? Or what are the questions we're not asking? So, some people might get annoyed with that. Like, oh my gosh, we've been over this. This is the way we've always done it. This is the status quo. Why does she keep asking these questions? Well, because that person's brain is I'm exploring on what's possible. And when you're exploring on what's possible is when you come up with new innovative ideas, or maybe you get to problem solving faster. The next one is inspirational creativity. So you know that you are working with someone that's in this space if they say, you know what, this morning I was reading the Wall Street Journal, and then I saw this article in People magazine, and there's this connection between this and a connection between that. I mean, they can take this dispersing ideas. And is this you? Is that why you're saying?
That's me. Yeah, right. I'm just like, oh, this, no, we're here, no, we're here. Right.
You know, these are people that are connectors. The next one is openness to new ideas. You know, when you go to someone and you say, I've been thinking about this and that, and if they say to you, say more, I'm interested, you know, you're working with someone that's open to your new ideas and is most likely willing to say, how do we get this idea now into the world? And then the last one is focused engagement. And focused engagement is that when you have people that are exploring and ideating, it's then time to put it into play. You got to go now, take all of those great things and say, what are we going to do with them? Because you need that in organizations. If we all spend our time asking questions, probably nothing would get done. Mm-hmm. And so there is this sense of, all right, now we got to go into action. Now, if you're working with someone and you're saying, you know, I've had this idea about this, and they say, yeah, but how are we going to execute it? You know, I'm going to need this in an Excel spreadsheet. Well, yeah, we do need those things, but if you close down too soon, you may not be discovering all the possibilities that could come into the world.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, I mean, you need all four of these traits in an organization, in a team, in an organization, and that some are stronger in some of those traits than others, but I could see elements of myself in all four.
Absolutely. And this is the power of having an assessment. So when the team takes the assessment and they understand collectively, this is how we show up as a team, and then this is how we show up as individuals, you can begin to say, wow, I operate in explore and she's operating in focused engagement. This is why we have friction. And so being able to have a language to say, give me 10 minutes to explore, and then we'll move into how we're going to execute it. And then that person says, oh yeah, let's go ahead and explore. You're just putting language around how you can bring this curiosity to life.
Yeah. Yeah. You got me thinking about, this is my inspiration side going right now. I don't know if you checked out any of Jeremy Utley's work on innovation. He's from the D School of Innovation at Stanford, and talks about sort of like ideation and sort of like how you set the framing for that. And it's not about, especially in like brainstorms, it's not about the quality of those ideas. It's about creating as many ideas as possible. Many of them might be bad ideas. Like, let's create as many bad ideas as we can just to open the field and to help us, you know, think about things more curiously in a more authentic, you know, kinds of ways. Love how that dovetails.
Yes, it's one of the, like, the team understanding, you know, for the next 30 minutes, we're just going to put everything out there. We are going to get to paring it down. We are going to get to an action plan. So people that are uncomfortable with exploration understands, like, okay, eventually we're going to get there. So I can be present in this exercise.
Yeah, I love that. Is there a score that I get? Is it like a numeric score, or is it sort of like you know, you're weak in this area and you're strong in this area? Like, I don't know if it's qualitative or quantitative in how you approach that.
Yeah, so it's quantitative in that you will get a score for each factor. So on a score from 0 to 100, and then you'll also get an aggregate score of all of your factors rolled up together. And then what I do when I'm working with teams or large organizations is I show a scatter plot of how many people are in Explore in terms of their number one, and how many people are in other areas. So then you can begin to see how the team is disparate, but in a way that you understand, like, we need all voices to be successful here. And having this sensitivity about how people's brains are wired and how they approach things, that's a high performing team.
Got it. So are those four traits together? Is that what you're just, what the namesake of the book is that the curiosity curve that you're talking about?
Yes. Yes. And then in addition to that, there's a optimal level of curiosity, as I mentioned earlier, is that if you work with someone that is continuously in explore and they never get to let's move into action, that can be really frustrating, especially for a team that says, wait, we're held accountable for objectives, KBIs. We need to do that. And so that's why we talk about a balance of curiosity.
Yeah, that hits hard. I've been on teams like that where they just want to ideate continuously, and then you're trying to get them down to like, okay, but at some point the rubber needs to meet the road, and we need to start getting some things done. So yeah, I love that orientation. Just looking back through some of the questions here, there's been a lot of chat that's been going on here. Yeah, just let's see. There was a question, Jay Washington. She's not going to show up here for whatever reason. LinkedIn randomly doesn't show the name of a person in the list, but I thought this was an interesting question. Have you encountered a leader or organization that is curious resistant, and how did you handle it?
So I once worked for a chief operating officer, and this was before I had done this work. And what I now know, one, about the role being operating officer, you got to make sure things get done. His focus was, well, he was focused engagement. And so it was he had this expertise, and it was just like, let's go get this done. And if we had a significant project that needed to be completed in a certain amount of time, it was every day at 3:00, there was a stand-up meeting, meaning you went to his office and you didn't get to sit down because it was going to be a round robin of what did you do today? What are you doing tomorrow? What did you do today? Is it related to that project? And I didn't have the words to describe what was going on like that I would have now, but he was definitely in focused engagement, and he had the experience, expertise. He knew what needed to get done.
Sounds a little frustrating.
Now I know I would approach it differently. And probably one-on-one, but not in the team space, but saying, I know that you're the expert in this, and so maybe you can help me understand, I'm seeing a disconnect here, or there's a gap there. What would you have me do? So I would approach questions differently with him to help him become more curious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Let's see, there's another question here from Brian. Have you seen correlations between higher levels of curiosity, the ability to engage that curiosity, a place to practice, and reduction in stress, anxiety, and burnout in your research?
We didn't measure those, particularly stress, anxiety, and burnout, but we did measure engagement. So if we take the leap that engagement, high engagement, or just engagement in general, would reduce stress, anxiety, and burnout, then I would say yes. And what we found is that three key factors in direct correlation between if an individual had a leader had a high level of curiosity, their team were high, they had higher engagement, they had greater retention, and higher job satisfaction.
Interesting.
Yeah. And if you think about what's happening right now, Gallup just reported that the U.S. is losing $7.8 trillion annually because of quiet quitting, meaning people continue to show up for work, but they're doing minimal amount of work. And why are they doing that? They're highly disengaged. And we took a group of, millennials that were deemed, highly disengaged, and we asked them, what's the source of your disengagement? And they said, my leader doesn't know me and doesn't care to know me.
Wow. There's like a big body of research that Gallup has done every year about sort of people being disengaged in the workplace, and a lot of it has to do with my manager. I don't feel a connection with my manager. I don't feel a connection with anyone else in my work group, and it doesn't seem like we've gotten that much better at it.
It seemed like things really, they were on a really nice uptick, when leaders began to understand that engagement is a local phenomenon and that leader can drive engagement within their team. And then I think it even spiked higher when we were in COVID, because we were just overcompensating to make sure people were safe and they felt connected. And then after COVID, things were really began to decline. And the thing that is most disappointing is that, with millennials making up the majority of the workforce, and they have 60% disengagement. So you think about it, the millennials are those, age between 29 and 40. Those are the individuals that are in the succession pipeline, meaning that would be the senior leaders in the next decade. And if they're saying we're not interested, what is that going to do over the next decade? It's not a good story, and we need to turn it around. And that's where curiosity comes in.
Wow. So, I mean, let's say you're in an organization where that is sort of the prevailing attitude, and you've had to come in as a turnaround consultant to try to correct that situation. Where do you start? I mean, how do you start creating the sparks? Do you start with the leadership? Do you start with the members? I'm kind of curious what the approach would be.
Yeah, so culture and leadership are synonymous. So, so goes the leader, so goes the culture. And my suggestion, recommendation is always starting at the C-suite and ensuring that they are, one, committed to making change, and they understand specifically what change needs to be occur, so that you can drive engagement, which then directly drives performance. Right.
Because they're setting the climate, they're setting the environment of what's permissible in the space overall. And so if they're on board with that, if they understand what they need to be able to be accommodating for, then that enables everybody else to come up to a level of curiosity.
Yeah, and it's one of they need to role model it.
Yeah, you got to live the values, right?
Yeah.
I love that. So what's the health regimen to get an executive to become more genuinely curious?
Well, the first thing is helping them understand why it's important, meaning that there is a direct correlation between performance, right? And executives want performance, and so understanding how do you get from how do you close those gaps? So one is, do you understand the impact it can have if we can make real change? So one is the awareness of it. And then the next piece of that is saying, you know what, it's not your fault, right? You've been taught to be incurious. And so you almost get a pass of, we have been conditioned and socialized to be incurious. So let's go ahead and put that aside, because now curiosity can be learned. And then that's when I go into what's the frameworks of curiosity. That's when we measure it to say, here's your current level of curiosity. And then here are ways in which you can behave in that way and begin to model it for others.
That's great. I have an intuition that a lot of executive leaders tend to score a little better on the focused engagement side of things. Like, yes, but how do we make this happen? Is that an inaccurate assumption, or it was just a gut reaction when I was thinking about the 4 levels?
I think it's you're going to love this answer. It depends.
Fair,
right.
Fair.
Yeah, in my experience, when I'm working with organizations that are on a trajectory of positive growth in revenue, I find them more open to take a risk and to step into something new, versus companies that are struggling, and they've got a board or they have investors that are saying we need to get this done, like something that's backed by a PE firm. It takes more convincing that investing in something like this will have a return for them.
Got it. That makes sense. I want to, I know we're getting a little low on time here, and I want to make time for more of the questions from the wonderful chat that's been going on the whole time. It's been going by here. Another question from Brian. Have you seen correlations between I think we already did this one, correct? Let's see. There was another one here. Oh, Andrea Simon. Andrea does a lot of really wonderful things about blue ocean strategies and innovation. Do you find it helpful if you set up times to be curious and creative, and separate those times from the process for choosing ideas for implementation?
Yeah. Well, hello, Andy. It's lovely to see your photo there, and the question. Not surprising that you would ask this kind of question, just knowing your curiosity. But so I'll talk at two levels. One, I'll talk personally. Is I do set aside time every morning to be curious and creative, and I do that by reading or podcasts. I'm stimulating my brain every morning. Now, going into at the org level, I would say absolutely yes. And it relates back to Todd, what you had said early in terms of making sure that there is an intention and that the team knows we're going to spend the next 30 minutes, put a time bound around it in terms of really ideating around what's possible here. And then we're going to move into implementation.
Love that. Love that. That's wonderful. So I'm going to ask a selfish question about online communities. Is there anything different that I do to encourage more curiosity in an online, like a digital team space or a discussion forum, an online space where maybe things have gotten a little bit staid, a little bit boring? Like how, I don't know if you have any practical wisdom to share around that kind of more virtualized, dispersed teams situation.
Yeah, so at the root of curiosity is a question. So it'd be one of stating an idea that you might have, or there's a case study that you have, but then asking the community, how would you solve this?
Mm-hmm.
And then having them interact with one another in terms of a solution, an idea.
Really wonderful, great suggestion. And we'll often talk about this, like, creating a great post in a community has to do with being clear about what you're asking for, and really challenging people with not just a simple yes or no question, but something that is asking for like their reflection or their opinion or how they would approach a situation. Can be really powerful. So that definitely tracks with things that I've seen. Cool. So I am going to take a note from your playbook and say, are there any questions I'm not asking that I should be asking in the interview that we haven't touched upon yet?
Perhaps around self-curiosity. We talk about curiosity in a community, curiosity on teams, but you can do it with yourself and, asking yourself questions. Like, for example, if something is like you're triggered by something, you get angry about something and saying, right, why is that bothering me?
Mm-hmm.
And pausing and letting it come up, or why do I want to learn this? Like if I have something new that's come up and I'm like, all right, let's think about this. Or better yet, what do I still need to learn?
Yeah, I love that. It also occurs to me that, you could use an LLM as a thought buddy, to cultivate your own curiosity about things. And I was going to ask you sort of the question, like, is AI helping us or hurting us from being more curious about things? If I don't know if you've formed any opinions about that world yet.
I think for me personally, it makes me more curious because I feel like I have a thinking partner and I'll ask a question, I'll get a response. And, it's this continuous learning and layering of, for me, new thinking, things I hadn't thought about before. So for me, it's a windfall.
Got it. I happen to agree with that. I find myself being more curious about more things when I can ask a question and not have to go to Google and sift through 50 gazillion links to figure out like what the answer to that is. And then that leads me to more questions, as it inevitably seems like the case. Wow, just some amazing questions from the chat here. I just want to play a couple of more here while we have time to squeeze in. Rona asks, what about Gen Z? Do they share the same disengagement with millennials? That's an interesting.
So the study wasn't in depth with Gen Z, but what I will say is we did see the same relationship with disengagement, but not as high as we did with millennials.
Got it. That's good. And then Piper was asking, does anyone have a suggestion for an alternative to podcasts that help you to be curious in bite-sized pieces?
I do. So,
Wonderful.
on YouTube, they have shorts. Have you seen these shorts?
Mm-hmm.
So they're just clips of another podcast, of a podcast, but you're only getting, it might be a minute of it. Listen to the shorts, and if I like what I heard and I want to go deeper, then I listen to the full podcast. If not, in a morning I could run through 30, 40 shorts, things that really spark my curiosity.
Yeah, definitely. And I love those as well, because it's just sort of like the quick hit inspiration. For me, the hardest thing is like to make sure that I take action on those. So I know, like, I've started like a dedicated LLM chat just as an inspiration file of stuff. Like when I have something like that, I'll grab the link and I'll jot in my thought or do a voice note or something like that, so that I at least have some kind of brain trust that I can go back to at some point. It's getting traction today is so hard because there's always the all-you-can-eat buffet of ideas and opportunities that come along to keep you there. Cool. One other question came in from Brian. Have you seen differences between positive and negative curiosity, threat versus reward? That's interesting.
Interesting. I have to think about that. I've not thought about curiosity in a negative way, other than, and this doesn't answer your question, is people that are too curious and then you don't move things forward. I don't know. That's a good question. I'm going to ponder it.
Yeah, it definitely is. I hadn't thought about it as a potential negative too. I mean, I suppose sort of like someone that, I mean, you had noted an example earlier of like just someone that is endlessly asking questions and it never gets down to a level of action. I suppose would be a potentially negative, kind of curiosity, but not a punitive one though. I don't know that I would think of it in those terms. So Rona said, thanks for the answer on the Gen Z thing. Very good. Yeah, it's interesting generational differences to take a look at there as well. I know we're running a little tight on time here. I'm going to ask Kalisa, who is our amazing showrunner in the background here, and thank you for all of your work that you do. Could you share the link to pre-order Deb's book, and so that we can go through that again? And it's coming up on October the 7th. Is that right, Deb?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thanks to everybody for the great questions today. I always ask this question towards the end of the stream. Is there something in your day-to-day practice? Is there like a buzzword or a term that you would prefer to banish from the business lexicon that just sort of bugs you on a regular basis?
Yes. And it is, that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is.
Business as usual, right?
That's just the way it is around here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see what we could do about that.
That's a curiosity killer, isn't it? Right?
Yeah. And depending on their power, it can really, it will shut down a conversation.
Absolutely. Well, I learned a lot from the conversation today. I'm definitely going to go and take the self-assessment on your website, and I'm eager to read the book when it comes out. And I hope maybe you'll come back to the show again and talk.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Todd. This was lovely. And anytime I get to talk about curiosity, I'm just in heaven.
Well, and curiosity is so much at the heart of building great spaces where people feel like they belong and they've got a stake in the outcomes that are there. I think that is a great note to end on for the show here today. Deb, any parting thoughts? Any last benediction about the importance of curiosity and the difference it can make for the workplace?
Curiosity will save us.
I love that. Deb Clary, I hope that everybody takes the chance to connect with you here on LinkedIn and pre-orders your book. And for those of you who came in late, you can join us for our next show coming up. It is up on the company page for Clocktower Advisors. Friday, September the 19th, we're going to be doing a show called Play, Participate, Prosper. gamification in action. Going to have a couple of friends of the show, Mim Jantan and Yun Yen Sai, who are going to be talking about designing for gamification to build community engagement and, dare I say, curiosity in the midst of it. Until then, I hope that all of you turn off the computer, go outside and breathe in the fresh air this weekend. Take some time for yourself, play, be curious about the world, and we'll be back here in 2 weeks to see you again. And keep building great communities in the meantime. Deb, thanks again for being on the show.
My pleasure.